Hi there, everyone. How you doing? Jesse here. It is Tuesday, November the 18th, and I have a quick reminder. I have going to be hosting the Max Resistance Roundtable tonight. We have a special guest, Nathan Folks, who is a well-known Hollywood producer and director, and is also known for calling out some major false flags, including the Boston bombing. So it should be very interesting to have a Hollywood insider on the show. So please check it out, 8 p.m. Eastern. MaxResistance.com, or here on YouTube. I will post a link. Now, this online extremism, right? This is something that you're going to have to acclimatize yourself to, because they're going to be using it a lot more. And I've been showing it lately in my videos. Just recently with Ottawa, of course, Kevin Vickers going to Israel, and then they just had a big summit there on online extremism. Just go figure, right? Well, Rob sent me a link today. Thanks again, Rob. Terrorists on Twitter are social media networks becoming safe havens for extremists. Now, just before I get into this article, I want to go back in the time machine here, just a couple months back. This is actually my video on David Cameron defining what extremists are. So listen in carefully, folks.
Islamist extremism, on the other hand, believes in using the most brutal forms of terrorism to force people to accept a warped worldview and to live in a quasi-medieval state. To defeat ISIL and organizations like it, we must defeat this ideology in all its forms. All its forms. Remember that. All its forms. Let's find out what its forms are. Come on. As evidence emerges about the backgrounds of those convicted of terrorist offences, it is clear that many of them were initially influenced by preachers. Preachers. Remember that. Preachers. Not to encourage violence, but whose worldview can be used as a justification for it. We know this worldview. The peddling of lies. That 9/11 was somehow a Jewish plot, or that the 7/7 London attacks were staged.
Okay, so there you go. David Cameron himself coming out saying that they're going after conspiracy theorists, right? This has been going on for a long time. This has been building up, and now we're getting to that point. So here's one of the initiatives that they've launched. So here off of Yahoo News, Yahoo! Terrorists on Twitter are social media networks becoming safe havens for extremists. News over the weekend of yet another video released by ISIS showed a beheaded American aid worker, showed no such thing of course, has once again put the role of social media plays in the fight against global extremism in the forefront. A former White House security advisor is convinced that these sites have become a safe haven for terrorist organizations like ISIS to spread their message and recruit violent jihadists. Having spent more than 2 decades in the field of global terrorism, Francis Townsend, the former Homeland Security Advisor to President George W. Bush and now head of the Counter-Extremism Project, has witnessed just about everything imaginable when it comes to the subject. But most recently, it is what she is witnessing on Twitter that has her greatest attention and concern. You're very, very concerned about Twitter because it's hard to shut down people on Twitter and it's easy to start yourself back up. In an interview with Yahoo News last Friday, Townsend said her frustration is that Twitter is not acting urgently and quickly enough to pull down these users. We identified an account with an individual who said he wanted to plant the ISIS flag in the head of our leaders like President Obama. And said Townsend, now, I mean, these are not people who just espouse their sort of views that I find personally, or I find offensive personally. There are people actually calling for themselves and others to commit violent acts. It's frustrating. It'll take Twitter 10 to 12 days to shut them down, and it takes these guys, as long as it takes to take a home pregnancy test before they reopen another account and they're up. Very interesting choice of words. So she's really upset because somebody said that they want to plant an ISIS flag in the head of leaders like President Obama. So somebody says that on Twitter, and this gets this lady all up in her panties. She's all irate, right? And they shouldn't be allowed to say stuff like that. Right? Of course, it's one thing to say something like this on Twitter. It's an entirely completely different world and dimension to actually even attempt to try to carry out something like that. But it doesn't matter to them because it's really not about ISIS extremists, because ISIS has been totally created by the New World Order in order to take away our rights. Twitter, for its part, eventually responded and removed 12 accounts flagged by the Counter-Extremism Project under the hashtag, this is the hashtag here, SEP Digital Disruption. However, a number of those users have resurfaced under new Twitter handles, and those accounts are still active. So this is what they're up to. They've created this thing here, which is called the Counter-Extremism Project, right? And it's a project, right? And the threat, right? Here's some of the threats, the Muslim groups that are the threats. Here are the projects, right? SEP Global Research Counter-Narrative Program, Eye on Extremism, Digital Disruption Campaign, Take Action, Donate, right? And this is one of their initiatives that they've put together in order to fight online extremism, right? And they have here, Take Action, Counter-Narrative Program. So they're actually, well, they're admitting that they're using shills to go after people and you know, counter the narrative that people are putting out. So let's watch this short clip here from their Counter-Extremism Project. You can see their pathetic YouTube page with a grand total of 14 subscribers and 250 views. But make no mistake, these people do have power.
Mass murder, kidnappings, ethnic and religious cleansing, all fueled by dangerous extremist groups.
Hundreds of schoolgirls were taken by terrorists.
The leader of the militant Islamic group Boko Haram.
Boko Haram. It couldn't be more bullshit than Boko Haram. And of course, you've got Brian Williams there bringing you the intro. So somehow we're going to trust this piece of shit here, this lying fucking psychopathic dirtbag who works for the corporate media, and he's telling you what's actually happening in the world. Therefore, you have to give up your rights, and you need this Counter-Extremism Project to come in and save the day so you can get those nasty terrorists off the Twitter.
Girls were taken by terrorists.
The leader of the militant Islamic group Boko Haram bragging that he was behind the kidnappings.
Boko Haram has terrorized Nigerian Christians, killing scores of believers.
Extremists are spreading intolerance and instability.
The Islamic Army, known as ISIS, has seized vast territory in Syria and Iraq.
ISIS terrorism is no longer a story from somewhere overseas. It is real. Jihadists openly saying they could bring their terror skills home. Europe and the United States have reason to be on high alert.
Political extremists, religious extremists. They are spreading their ideology.
So political extremists, religious extremists. You notice how there's two groups? So the political extremists are those that, of course, believe that 9/11 was a Jewish plot or that 7/7 was an inside job sort of thing, right? You see how they're putting them both together.
To destabilize their homelands and launch violent attacks against targets around the world.
And you see how it's spreading, just like the virus, right? In what's that, Planet of the Apes movie? Was it Rise of... I can't even remember.
They threaten our security, our way of life.
No, they don't.
What can we do? The Counter-Extremism Project will employ tools to challenge the growth of extremism and hold supporters of extremism accountable. Our group will assemble a global network of counter-extremism and security experts.
And this is what they've been doing, right? This whole thing here. They've been assembling. I've shown this in other videos how they're putting these massive meetings together, and that's some of the stuff that they're going to be hammering out at the G20 and of course the APEC summit that they just had, and of course what happened in Israel. And wouldn't you know it, there was another attack in Israel today, probably another false flag. Haven't had a chance to take a good look at it yet, though, folks.
Map the social and financial networks of extremists and identify and
counter their tools and methodologies. And this is exactly what shills do. You know, that's why I get so many shills on my videos, because they're paid to come after people like me. And people like you posting your thoughts, posting your tweets.
Their tools and methodologies. Expose sources of financing for extremists. Advance counter-narratives that stem extremist recruitment.
Advance counter-narratives that stem extremist recruitment, particularly of the youth. So, advance counter narratives, right? So putting counter narratives out there is basically shilling. That's exactly what they're saying.
Particularly of youth. Alarms are ringing around the world over extremist groups.
Look at this concerns about Islamic extremism, right? And what the hell is this? 92% of the population worried about extremism in Lebanon. Are you serious? Right? 80% in Tunisia, right? All these nations are all so worried. They're all so worried about extremism. Really? Really?
But governments alone can't stop the spread of extremism. That's why the Counter-Extremism Project will serve as a key resource in the fight against extremists worldwide. Join us as
there you
we
go.
work
Join
to
us.
shut down extremism.
There you go. Give them your name, your last name, your email address. Stand with us. Come and be a shill.
Extremism at the source. Extremism is
It's a threat to you all. It's a threat to you all. It's everywhere. It's what they've been doing. I mean, it's so crazy. When you actually cover all these false flags and you see how they use it, and then you see the idiots that they put, the crisis actors on TV, that say right after some event happens, well, it's everywhere. You know, it could be anybody. It could have been anybody that instead of Nathan Cirillo, it could have been anybody, right? And the threat is all around us. We used to know what the threat was, but now we have no idea because the threat is an ideology, and there's a dangerous extremism ideology that is all over the internet. And it takes all forms, folks. It's not just the radical jihadist, it's also the radical conspiracy theorist, right? The radical sort of guy or a girl or whoever that questions the corporate media or criticizes the corporate media.
To all, we must come together to make the world a safer place.
There you go. You got to come in. We're terrorizing you with our bullshit ISIS and IS and ISIL and all this crap that we're making up. The fake beheadings, the whole fake jihadi John and all this crap, right? They're terrorizing the people. And then they're coming in and telling you, you got to support these things. You've got to support these agencies that will work to counteract freedom of speech, essentially, right, on the internet. Because it's really not about the jihadists. It's really more about the people that are dissidents within their own countries, right? The Five Eyes. That's what they fear the most. They fear people like us who expose their dirty deeds, right? So we're exposing their dirty deeds, and they are coming up with Counter-Extremism Project. And as I said, extremism is what they're gonna rope all these different things in together. That's why David Cameron came out and said, you know, people that believe that 9/11 and 7/7 were inside jobs, essentially, those are extremists. People that have that, it's not. And he also said, you know, that speech is very important. I'll post a link for it below. But he also went on about how it's about fighting an ideology, and that it starts in our schools. It starts in our universities, and it starts in our prisons. That's what he actually said. So he's worried about the extremism that's happening within their country, not what's happening in Iraq and Syria, which are mostly just make-believe and a lot of Hollywood sort of production, right? Fake beheadings and fake this and fake that. Fake crisis actors, fake family members coming on telling the world that they need to go in and do something terrible, and they need to take out Bashar al-Assad, and they need to go back into Iraq and all that. So here we go. It's just the latest chapter of what they're trying to do to target us, and I'll leave the links for all this below, and please join us tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, which is going to be very soon. So thank you very much for listening. Have a wonderful day.